You actually do this sort of relative dating all the time. You can look at a car driving down the street and tell whether it's from the 1960s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s with pretty good accuracy. You may not be able to know the exact date of it, but stylistically you can tell. That's an old car, right? I get it. And it sort of looks similar to these other cars. That's relative dating. You're not actually saying it is this old, but you can put it into a phased approach that actually shows that I don't know what date it is, but it's earlier or later than this other one. Now that, for a long time, that's all archaeologists were able to do. We didn't have any scientific means of dating the past, but this has changed after 1955. Carbon-14 dating was able to use physics, radioactive isotope of carbon that you have in your body and I have in my body and every living thing has in their physical form. As you're alive, you have carbon-14 in your body. But once you die, your body stops maintaining that level of an unstable isotope and it starts decomposing into nitrogen and decaying into nitrogen. And the ratio of carbon-14 to nitrogen is like a clock. So once you die, that carbon-14 that you've got in your body starts to transform. And the more you have, the longer ago you died. So anything that was once alive up to as long as it's all nitrogen, which is about 80,000 years, and then it's too old for us to measure by this method, we can measure absolute dating, that you're actually getting a date before present that organism died, right? So this much nitrogen has taken over from carbon in this dead organism, this cow that existed, that tells us that was actually 5,000 years ago. Now, once it's all nitrogen, the process stops. It's all stabilized, and you're not having this transformation anymore, which means you need another sort of archaeometric dating technique, which is there's a range of them. For instance, potassium also breaks down into argon, not with living creatures, but with potassium in soil and that sort of a thing. And so once it's laid down, unstable isotopes of potassium will start to break down into argon. And so you can measure a soil deposit and how old that soil deposit was laid down. There's a range of methods that your book has. I'll just let you read about those a little bit more. But these are the sorts of things that, independent of the stratigraphy that you're getting, independent of the relative dates, you can absolutely date these things. Now, it gives you a range of dates. It's not like a calendar. You can say, okay, September 25th, 3002 BC. It's not going to be that precise, but it will be a range of plus or minus this many hundred years or so, which gives you an independent date that doesn't rely upon the relative stratigraphy. These two methods combined then can give you an absolute date and a sequence that tells you how far back in time these assemblages that you're collecting from your excavations were going. Now, this can be done on a scale of decades or centuries, thousands of years, even millions of years, depending on the stratigraphy, the deposits, what's going on, and the techniques of dating as well. Now, this is really important because biological anthropologists are also going to be pulling out information from this stratigraphic sequence. Archaeologists will find human remains and human ancestor remains in that sequence. And the changes that occur in that context can be analyzed by a combination of the techniques that archaeologists use and the ones that biologists use. So looking at the bones, bone biology will tell us about not just the bones, but the soft tissues that would have been on it as well. And you can look at the pathologies, any injuries or any conditions that the individual might have had. And you can also, through anthropometry, you can look at the measurement of and dimensions of body parts. You can look at things like nutrition, growth, and development. And you put that into the context of the archaeological assemblage, and you can talk about what were the biological adaptations that were taking place. What kind of diet did this creature or individual have? Did they live in a group? Did they live individually? Did they need shelter? Or did they live in a forest? Or did they live in a savanna? What kind of, did they hunt or did they gather? All of these things can be brought together to build up a picture of change through time. Now, this is very important because this is the bread and butter of how we understand human evolution. And we're going to come to these chapters in a little bit here. We'll first look in the next chapter at the concepts of evolution, but then we'll turn our attention to the evidence from the past and why we are the way that we are today. So I'll catch you then.